Hi, I'm Katrina, and this is Boldly Challenging Ableism. I'm your host, Katrina Simon. I'm the Community Program Specialist at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. This program explores various topics that impact people with disabilities in our community. Each episode addresses a different aspect of our society within the context of ableism. Ableism is the prejudice that stems from the belief or belief system that assumes someone is less capable or less worthy because of a real or perceived difference in ability or function. On this program, we hope to answer some questions you may have been afraid to ask, or maybe some you didn't even know you had. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation. All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning into Ableism again. Season 2. Woo! We're so excited. All right. Today I'm going to talk to my friend Rob Wudlick, who has a really busy, full, interesting life that interacts with ableism in so many ways. So I think it's going to be a really great episode. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right. And what is it that you, what is your connection to the disability community?
Yeah, so I have a spinal cord injury. I've been injured for about 14 years as a high-level quadriplegic from a rafting accident on the Grand Canyon. I broke my neck and ended up as a high-level quad and a power wheelchair user, and that's kind of where I'm at. So I've been a pretty big disability advocate for spinal cord injury research, employed persons with disability, accessibility, and other issues that impact my life and millions of Americans and Minnesotans too. So
cool. And what do you mostly do with your time? Like during the day when you're awake?
Yeah, when I'm awake.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm always, working. I'm a project manager or project director for a company right now that's developing wheelchairs for pediatrics. And I have my own company that's developing pressure mapping systems. So I have a background in engineering and clinical research, and really interested in that tech translation. So getting innovative products that help people with physical disabilities, kind of out of research labs and into the market. And so my company also makes and sells phone holders and mouse sticks and so on. But Adapt Design Works and Optimal Mobility, a little plug.
Did you train as an engineer?
I did, yeah, okay. Industrial engineering. So
okay.
A lot of
bridges and stuff. I did not train as an engineer, and you'll be able to tell very quickly.
No, industrial is the business end of engineering, so it's mainly production management and project management. So
okay, like supply chain stuff.
It can be. It's very broad.
That's as close as I can get. That's the only term I know.
Yeah, traditionally it's factories and how to make factories run faster, better. Not like firing people unless it's needed, but more, where does this piece of equipment go? How many, workstations do we need, and where's the best place to put them and stuff like that. Cool. But that translates into hospitals and offices and everywhere that we work, and even your kitchen. So
had you ever thought about the intersection of engineering and disability prior to your injury?
A little bit. I mean, I was a pretty outdoor focused adventure kind of athletic person before my injury, and I still have that mindset. But, definitely my more focus was in preventing disabilities with ergonomics and, carpal tunnel, and, twisting your back during motions is a pretty big workplace injury. So, yeah. Things like that, and workplace accommodations, we skimmed on in our training a little bit lightly, but I also broke my neck pretty shortly after I was, graduated from college. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Get Up Stand Up?
So Get Up Stand Up is a group in Minnesota. We founded in 2015 based on a group of pretty passionate spinal cord injury people in the Minneapolis Twin City area. We were pretty focused on getting some legislation passed for what turned into a $3 million a year spinal cord brain injury research grant program, which has made a lot of pretty cool breakthroughs and brought some good, innovations to Minnesota and helping people from Minnesota and all over the world out right now. We love to see it keep going. And that's a state-run council that administers those funds. But we had this group, and we were like, we're pretty motivated, we're doing good, and we should keep going. And so, our kind of 3 pillars are research, adaptive fitness support. So we do adaptive fitness scholarships for people with spinal cord injuries in Minnesota, and community support. So we have a resource guidebook. We do a couple peer groups every month and peer mentoring program.
I've heard that there's like some new scientific findings on improving finger function in people with spinal cord injuries. Is that true?
Correct. So a company called Onward Medical released transcutaneous. So that's, they put electrical stim patches on your skin.
And you don't have to shave your head, right?
No.
Nope.
They
Perfect.
Put it on your neck and on your hips. And it's shown some upper extremity functional improvement, which is, fairly remarkable from anything we've seen before this kind of treatment now. So you can get it at Health Partners in Minnesota. There's probably about 40 or 50 sites in the US now as of fall of 2025. And Courage Kenny, I think, is going to be getting the system soon. And so it's just kind of rolling out right now, which is super exciting. And I've personally seen people have remarkable changes in their own abilities. And, this is kind of something that, too, like we can take a little bit of credit for with the Minnesota Research Grant Program. So.
Yeah. No, I know. I heard about it from my friend, Bob Wagner, who I think is also really involved in getting stand-up.
Yeah, I think he got to try it out. And I don't know if he's in the therapy or not, but yeah.
Okay, so the day that I saw him, we went to happy hour at Surly, and he said he had just signed up for all the therapy sessions, like just scheduled them all.
Nice. Yeah, I think they want you going 3 days a week right now for that one at Health Partners. And
yeah, that was the one he was going to go to. So way to go. Good job.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about when you flew and your chair was broken? But first, back up and also tell us about what it's like to need a chair and get a chair.
Of course. So I fly. Before COVID, I was flying probably about 5 to 10 times a year, quite frequently. I still fly a couple times a year for conferences and recreation. I went to Europe a year ago, and it was a great experience. It's a little bit different. Things are a little bit different in Europe, but they're actually surprisingly good. And the EU actually has their own ADA kind of taking place right now, which is exciting.
The EU or the University of Minnesota? You mean the EU?
No, the European Union.
Okay.
So, yeah. So Spain was really exciting in Barcelona, and it's actually kind of cool, like the Olympics, when they host a place, their host city has to be built to certain accessibility standards. So when the Olympics were in Barcelona, that was a big change for them. But back to air travel, when I fly, I do a lot of things. I take off every cushion, everything that could come off my chair, I take off. I take off the little T-bar in my joystick and, fold it in. Some people get like boxes and, crates that they bring to the airport. It's, people go way overkill on this. And
I do the bubble wrap thing.
Yeah, bubble wrap. We did that the first time, and it was a lot of work. And I'm like, this chair gets dropped, bubble wrap's not going to do anything. So,
right. Yeah.
But if I took off the cushions, they're not going to get ripped and rained on, that kind of thing. So, and then we call up the baggage handler and explain, this is my legs. Please be careful with it. And they go and push it away and loaded into the cargo, and I get strapped into a little like teeny wheelchair that goes down the aisle. And, about every 4 times I'm transferred, I'm dropped in the aisle. It's
Oh my God.
pretty bad. And it's a lack of training, lack of skill, mainly of the people that are transferring you. So it's a risk and it's an inconvenience I'm willing to take. A lot of people in my community or our community choose not to travel anymore just because it's such a headache. And, you have to travel with extra equipment. I travel with probably another suitcase or a suitcase and a half of, medical supplies and a commode chair and a Hoyer lift. And it's actually really 2 extra pieces of luggage, and, they're big and bulky, and but yeah, getting dropped is not fun. I've had friends break their legs and get pressure sores and so on. Last spring I was coming back from a conference in New York, and I'm going to repeat just so it's a little bit flowing better. But last spring when I was coming back from a conference in New York, our flight got delayed because it was March, and if you remember, we had about a foot of snow that fell, and it delayed everything. And then there was some big storm out east too that delayed our flight, and we got in maybe around 10:30, 11. I got off the chair. Well, I was sitting in the plane for probably over an hour after everyone got off, and finally they come up and they're like, "Yeah, your chair's broken." So that was not fun.
And did they talk about like how broken it was or when it got broke or anything? They just told you it was broken?
No, it wouldn't turn on. The frame was bent. The wheels were pressed against the frame, so the wheels weren't even roll.
Okay.
I don't even know how they got it up to the, I saw it for maybe 10 minutes, and I was like, yeah, this chair's done. And it was totaled. And yeah, it was pretty frustrating. And it was already like 11 o'clock, 11:15 at that point. And then I had to go fill out some paperwork. And, luckily there were some rules that were put in place last year that helped me out and get a speedy chair right away. And they were pretty accommodating and responsive. It was already 1:30 by the time I left the airport. So I took a lobby chair through to my car, or threw myself in the lobby chair and rode that home. I'm fortunate that I keep a spare chair under my stairs, but not many people in my situation have this. So the next morning, we just pulled out the old chair that is mostly fairly reliable, and had to use that for a month. But just the scheduling to get a new chair, and a lot of this has to do with the equipment available at the airport, the training, the baggage handlers. You only see them one way. When you're giving them the chair, you don't really have a choice to intervene when you land. And a lot of times they're not even notified, so they don't even have the equipment at the ramp there.
Okay. And I'm just sorry. Can I just back us up a little bit and talk about how hard it is to procure a power chair in the first place? Can you talk a little bit about that?
To get a flight?
No, yeah. To get a chair.
Oh, to get a chair.
In general, yeah.
Okay. So to get a wheelchair, there's a whole sizing and kind of protocol that you go through. Luckily, all that was stored on file at the place that does my wheelchairs. So they just took those measurements and ordered a new chair. Surprisingly, it was actually faster than it would have been through insurance because of these rules. So there's no question of who was going to pay for it. It was the airlines had a pretty clear understanding that they were on the hook for paying for damages to my wheelchair based on the 2024 Department of Transportation rules under Biden administration that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah.
Oh, so you did not have to go all the way to the beginning of the process?
No, I got to skip a few steps, but it still took a month for the manufacturer to build that chair. They build them to order and ship it to Minnesota, which then ended up in my hands a few days later.
So I find that it generally, when I need, because I also use a power chair, I find that when I need a new one, which is covered once every 5 years by insurance, it takes about 6 months to a year to get it from the time I start the ordering process. Do you also
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, and the chair that I ordered, the chair that broke, that took about a year and a half process because there was a chip shortage. It was during COVID and all those problems that, happened then. So, in Minnesota's pretty good state for coverage, but these coverage decisions get kicked down the road in a lot of other states, and denial after denial, and then until they're finally approved. That's just kind of standard practice in states that don't have protections like Minnesota does. So,
and then were you able to get the same kind of chair and the same kind of cushion and the same everything?
Yeah, it was the exact copy. I was hoping to get a little upgrade or something. I just got the newer trim package that they didn't have the old one. So. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you get to pick the color?
Yeah, I got to pick the color.
Like, it's a lot of work to get a chair in the first place, and to get a new one would also be a lot of work.
And to get it repaired I actually haven't had an adjustment to my chair, which I'm way past due for that, because you get your new chair, you get it kind of set for your body, and then a couple of weeks later you're like, well, now that I'm thinking about this, it's could do a few extra things. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about the it's called the Aircraft Carrier Access Act?
Yeah. So going back to the history, and as a quadriplegic, when our chairs, I'm starting back. So, starting at the history of kind of where all the Aircraft Carriers Act, starting at, yeah.
That's okay.
Okay. So, coming from the top, right. So the crisis on the tarmac really goes back to kind of the Jim Crow and civil rights eras. And it was kind of the Wild West before 1986. Airlines weren't required to, even have passengers that use wheelchairs or disabilities. And so that was quite a big problem. And in 1986, the Paralyzed Veterans brought a Supreme Court ruling that came out as that really airlines did not have to accommodate to people with disabilities. So there was a pretty quick response to that. In the same year, Congress passed the Air Carrier Access Act, or the ACAA. It did give civil rights to people with disabilities for airlines and airports. Now, there's some flaws with the original rules, and it's now with us, but that we have access, and we're grateful for that. But there were some kind of limitations, and so it allows the Department of Transportation to allow the agency to set their own rules that can come and go with different presidential administrations. And I think another kind of key point too is that the ACAA also lacks private right of action. So individuals like yourself and me cannot directly sue an airline for wheelchair damage. The Department of Transportation is the only one that can do that. In 2024, that happened under the Biden era with a $50 million lawsuit to American Airlines. I think another key thing is that this is the ACAA, or the Air Carriers Access Act, is separate from the ADA. And because of the proximity and timing, 4 years later in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. They were excluded. So air carriers and airlines are excluded from ADA rules. This is why you don't see tie downs in airplanes where we can't take our wheelchair in, but you do see it in public buses. So they're both forms of public transportation, but not treated the same. Now, there's been a lot of our last administration, there was a lot of kind of, identifying needs and problems with kind of current standards for people with disabilities that where we travel. And so in 2024, a couple key rules were passed with Buttigieg and Biden. Buttigieg was the former Department of Transportation Secretary, that increased liability onto the air carriers. And it enhanced training standards and timing of training. It also required prompt return of, misplaced wheelchairs or scooters. So they wanted to get somebody's wheelchair back within 24 hours or a rental. And reimbursed fare differences and safe and dignified access. And so some of these rules were actually in place until September of 2025 this year. And there was a lawsuit kind of put together by a conglomerate of airlines to attempt to block this rule. And so, it's hard to say if we can blame the current Trump administration and Sean Duffy, the current Department of Transportation person. But basically the judicial system kind of said, let's reconsider these rules. And, Secretary Duffy, said that, we believe it's essential to find a balanced approach that supports the dignity of travelers with disabilities while considering the realities of airline operations and also promoting innovation. So right now we're kind of what DOT is currently decided, though, because of this court ruling and maybe administrative priorities or so on, but they're basically going to be delayed until next year. I think kind of late 2026. So a lot of these rules that were in place in 2024 are rescinded. Not all of them, but some of them. And so it's kind of we're in this era of, it's a little bit scarier to travel. It was scary to travel anyways with disability, but, I think we had these rules that, were kind of helping us out a little bit more and making a huge difference. And I noticed a difference too in how I was treated as a traveler with a disability after these rules compared to prior. I think too, it feels, I think there's a lot of fear and, we don't really know. And there's kind of a, banter of anti-ADA type, jargon coming from the administration and pullback of laws. And that causes a lot of scare in the disability community and rightfully so. So we don't really know how, our future of air travel will look as somebody with a disability.
Do you feel less likely to travel now than you did prior to the rescinding?
Personally, no, but I haven't traveled since the rescinding, so I haven't seen a difference. Like a week ago, one of my friends, he's a quadriplegic from DC, had some damage to his chair, and it was fixed pretty quickly right after that. So it wasn't a total loss, catastrophic loss for his wheelchair, but he did have pretty quick coverage and, non-questionable. Now he's a little bit connected. He's on a United Airlines accessibility, corporate accessibility panel. So
okay. So there might have been some privilege there.
Maybe, but at least he's doing good. So
yeah. So happy he's doing good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have to go pretty soon, but is there anything that the general public can do to support the?
Yeah.
Okay. Let us know.
Yeah. So, write your politicians. This is a really important, thing that, we want to see continuation and laws that impact accessibility standards for people with wheelchairs. I think, until August of 2026, we really won't know where the administration's going with this. So we're kind of in the middle of this fight, and there's plenty of time to make your voice heard, because this is kind of really important. We were on a really good trajectory for getting wheelchairs in cabins. Delta Airlines, and I think one of the other airlines released wheelchair accessible seats that fold up and you can do tie downs. There's a group for getting people with wheelchairs in the cabin so we don't have to deal with most of these problems that we encounter as wheelchair users in the airport. So, I think there was some really good headway and traction and even corporate movement on these kind of innovative things. And we want to make sure that's still incentivized. It's not.
We don't want to move backwards.
Yeah, we don't want to move backwards. We want to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big thing. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is time for us to wrap up, but thank you so much for joining us. And we will make sure to put the official name in our description so that people can write their representatives about it. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And have a great day.
Thank you. Yeah.
Boldly Challenging Ableism is a co-production of AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. For more information, please visit ici.umn.edu.